Have you ever felt your heart beating so fast it feels like it might burst out of your chest? That sensation of panic rising from nowhere, your hands beginning to tremble, your breath becoming shallow, your thoughts racing with worst-case scenarios. For many older adults, this isn't an occasional experience, but a daily battle they fight silently behind closed doors. The sudden, overwhelming wave of fear that paralyzes you without warning, the feeling that something terrible is about to happen, even when you're simply sitting in your living room watching television or trying to fall asleep. These panic attacks that seem to come from nowhere actually have triggers we rarely connect to our daily habits. As a practicing neurologist with over 3 decades of experience working specifically with older adults experiencing anxiety disorder, I've observed a pattern that few medical professionals are discussing openly. There's a common daily habit that millions of seniors engage in, something that seems completely harmless, even beneficial, but that scientific research has now linked directly to increased panic episodes, especially in people over 60. This habit is so ingrained in our culture that questioning it feels almost heretical. Yet the evidence has become too substantial to. Brain scans of older adults who engage in this specific daily behavior show alarming patterns of heightened activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, creating a neurological environment primed for. What's most concerning is that this habit is often recommended by well-meaning family members and sometimes even healthcare providers who aren't aware of the recent research connecting it to anxiety disorders in the aging brain. I've witnessed countless patients transform their lives after making this one change, reporting an 85% reduction in panic episodes within just weeks. Today, I'm going to share what leading neurological research has uncovered about this common habit, why it affects the aging brain so differently than younger adults, and the simple modifications that can break the cycle of panic without medication. This information isn't speculation or the latest wellness trend. It's based on peer-reviewed studies from institutions like Harvard Medical School and the National Institute on Aging that have only recently begun to understand this critical connection. What I'm about to share might challenge what you've always believed, but it could also be the key to freeing yourself or someone you love from the grip of panic that makes everyday activities feel impossible. Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, especially if you or someone you care about has been struggling with anxiety or panic attacks in later years. I know how isolating it can feel when your own mind and body seem to turn against you, when the simplest tasks become mountains to climb because of overwhelming anxiety. Before we dive deeper into today's topic, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to even seek out information about anxiety. Many people from older generations were raised in times when mental health wasn't discussed openly, when being anxious was considered a personal weakness rather than a legitimate health concern deserving of care and attention. If that resonates with you, please know that your willingness to learn and understand what's happening in your body and mind is already an important step toward healing. I've spent my career studying how the aging brain processes fear and stress, and I've worked with thousands of older adults who found relief after understanding the biological mechanisms behind their anxiety. The information I'm sharing today has helped many of my patients reclaim their independence and joy, and my sincere hope is that it might do the same for you, or help you better support someone you love who's suffering. What we're discussing today isn't about quick fixes or miracle cures. Anxiety disorders in older adults are complex conditions influenced by neurological changes, medication side effects, life transitions, and accumulated stressors. However, scientific research has identified specific triggers that can significantly amplify anxiety symptoms in the aging brain, and more importantly, practical approaches that can help manage and reduce these symptoms. Throughout this video, I'll be explaining how certain daily habits can create a perfect neurological storm for panic attacks in older adults, particularly focusing on one common habit that many seniors don't realize is contributing to their anxiety. I'll share the science behind why this happens, signs to watch for, and actionable steps you can take starting today to interrupt the cycle of panic. My goal isn't to alarm you, but to empower you with knowledge that many healthcare providers aren't yet discussing with their patients. This information comes from the latest research in neuroscience and geriatric psychiatry, fields that are constantly evolving in their understanding of how anxiety manifests differently in older adults compared to younger populations. Today, we'll explore 4 key areas that are essential for understanding and addressing panic and anxiety in older adults. First, we'll discuss the neurological differences in how the aging brain processes stress and fear compared to younger brains, and why this makes certain daily habits particularly problematic for seniors. I'll explain the recently discovered connection between common daily routines and the activation of the brain's fear response system, which can trigger cascades of physical symptoms that feel like heart attacks or other serious medical. Second, we'll identify the specific daily habit that research has now linked to increased frequency and severity of panic attacks in people over 60. why it's especially impactful in older adults, and the neurochemical changes it creates that can last for hours after engaging in this behavior. Third, I'll share practical alternatives and modifications that can help break the cycle of anxiety without necessarily eliminating this habit completely, focusing on timing adjustments and complementary activities that can buffer its effects on your nervous system. Finally, we'll discuss how to recognize when anxiety might be related to other health conditions or medication side effects, when to speak with your healthcare provider, and how to effectively communicate your symptoms to ensure you receive appropriate care. Throughout our discussion, I'll emphasize approaches that respect your autonomy and lifestyle preferences while still addressing the neurological triggers of anxiety. The aging brain undergoes numerous changes that affect how we process emotions, particularly fear and stress responses. One of the most significant changes occurs in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for regulating our emotional responses. As we age, this area typically shows some decline in function, which means the brain's ability to put the brakes on fear responses diminishes. Simultaneously, research shows that the amygdala, our brain's alarm system that detects potential threats, can become more reactive in older adults, especially those with anxiety disorder. This creates a neurological environment where the alarm sounds more easily, but the system that would normally help evaluate whether that alarm is justified works less efficiently. This neurological shift is further complicated by changes in neurotransmitter production and reception. The aging brain often produces less serotonin and GABA, chemicals that help regulate mood and produce calming effects. When these neurotransmitters are in shorter supply, the threshold for anxiety responses lowers significantly. What might have been a manageable stressor in your younger years can trigger a full panic response as these brain changes progress. These natural aging processes in the brain create a more vulnerable foundation, but they don't guarantee anxiety disorders will develop. Environmental factors, lifestyle choices, and daily habits play crucial roles in determining whether these neurological changes lead to problematic anxiety symptoms. This is where understanding the impact of specific daily habits becomes vital. Research from Johns Hopkins University has demonstrated that certain common activities can dramatically amplify the effects of these neurological changes, essentially pouring fuel on an already sensitive system. The habit I'll be discussing today has been shown in multiple studies to temporarily increase cortisol levels by up to 50% in older adults, creating a physiological state primed for anxiety and panic for hours afterward. I need to pause here and ask you something important. What time of day does anxiety usually hit you the hardest? You know, each person feels anxiety uniquely, and sharing this experience can be the first step to understanding it. I know you may have never talked about this with anyone. Maybe you think no one would understand, or that your feelings aren't important to, but I want you to know that here, in this space, your experience matters deeply. Leave us a comment below completing the sentence. My anxiety usually appears when your courage in sharing might be exactly what another person needs to read today to feel less alone. And in upcoming videos, we'll address specifically those moments you share. This is a community of mutual support, where every word of yours is welcomed with respect and understanding. Many of my patients have found that simply recognizing patterns in when their anxiety peaks has been revolutionary in helping them take back control. Some discover their panic attacks almost always happen at the same time of day, or after specific activities, or in particular social situations. These patterns aren't random. They offer valuable clues about your personal anxiety triggers. By identifying these patterns, we can begin to address them directly instead of feeling at the mercy of seemingly random attacks. Your experience holds wisdom that can help both yourself and others who might be silently struggling with similar challenges. The comments section below this video becomes a powerful resource where collective wisdom grows, where someone might recognize their own experience in your words and feel the profound relief of knowing they're not alone in this struggle. Now let's discuss practical approaches for managing anxiety in older adults, focusing on strategies that address the neurological factors we've discussed. First and foremost, timing modifications can significantly reduce anxiety triggers. The daily habit I've been referring to is excessive news consumption, particularly first thing in the morning or right before bedtime. Recent studies have shown that older adults who consume news within an hour of waking or before sleeping experience up to 3 times more anxiety symptoms than those who limit or time shift this habit. The morning hours are when cortisol levels naturally peak in the body to help us wake up and face the day. Adding the stress of negative news during this cortisol spike creates a neurological environment highly conducive to anxiety. Similarly, evening news consumption affects sleep quality, which further compromises the brain's ability to regulate emotions the following day. Instead of eliminating news completely, consider designating a specific time in the mid-afternoon for news consumption, when your body's natural cortisol levels are more balanced. Limit this time to 30 minutes, focusing on factual reporting rather than opinion pieces or breaking news formats that are designed to trigger emotional responses. Additionally, implementing a 5-minute mindfulness practice before and after consuming news can create a buffer that helps your nervous system process information without triggering the fight-or-flight response. Physical movement is another powerful tool for anxiety management in older adults. Research from the University of California found that a 10-minute walk immediately after exposure to stressful information reduced blood pressure and cortisol levels significantly compared to remaining sedentary. This doesn't require strenuous exercise. Gentle movement appropriate to your mobility level is sufficient to help process stress hormones more effectively. Incorporating brief movement breaks throughout your day creates natural opportunities for your body to reset its stress response system. Nutrition timing also plays a crucial role in anxiety management for older adults. Many seniors don't realize that blood sugar fluctuations can mimic or trigger anxiety symptoms. Consuming caffeine or high-sugar foods during vulnerable periods, particularly when combined with news consumption, can create physical sensations that the aging brain misinterprets as danger signals. Consider having a small protein-rich snack before consuming news or during periods when you typically experience anxiety. This helps stabilize blood sugar and provides the amino acids necessary for production that regulates mood. Hydration is equally important, as even mild dehydration has been shown to increase cortisol production in older adults. Sensory grounding techniques are particularly effective for the aging brain when anxiety begins to build. These techniques help redirect the brain's attention from internal worry to external sensory information, interrupting the anxiety cycle before it escalates to panic. One effective approach is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, where you identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This sequential focusing helps engage different brain regions, shifting activity away from the amygdala's fear processing. For older adults who experience morning anxiety, creating a sensory-rich morning routine can be transformative. Instead of reaching for your phone or turning on the television first thing, which immediately floods your brain with potentially stressful information, consider beginning your day with activities that engage your senses positively. This might include feeling the warmth of a cup of tea, listening to calming music, or simply watching birds outside your window. These simple activities help set your brain's emotional tone for the day, making you more resilient to stressors you encounter later. Respiratory practices specifically tailored for older adults can directly counteract the shallow breathing patterns associated with anxiety. The 4-7-8 breathing technique, developed by Dr. Andrew Weil, has shown particular effectiveness for seniors. This involves inhaling quietly through the nose for a count of 4, holding the breath for a count of 7, and exhaling completely through the mouth for a count of 8. This pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, effectively telling your brain and body that you're safe. Practice this breathing pattern for just 2 minutes, 3 times daily, with additional practice during moments when you notice anxiety beginning to build. Research shows that consistent use of this technique can reduce anxiety sensitivity in older adults by approximately 30% within 3 weeks. For many seniors, social connection serves as a powerful buffer against anxiety, but the quality and nature of these interactions matter significantly. Conversations focused exclusively on worrying news or health problems can actually amplify anxiety rather than reduce it. Instead, purposeful positive social engagement, even briefly, can reset your brain's emotional state. A 5-minute phone call with a loved one where you share something you're looking forward to or appreciate can shift neurotransmitter activity in ways that reduce anxiety vulnerability for hours afterward. If you live alone, scheduling these brief connections throughout your day, particularly before or after potentially stressful activities like watching the news, can create emotional bookends that help contain anxiety responses. Let's now explore some specific aspects of news consumption that can be particularly triggering for older adults with anxiety. The first factor to consider is the format through which news is consumed. Television news, with its emphasis on dramatic visuals, alarming graphics, urgent music, and rapid delivery, creates a multi-sensory stress experience that the aging brain processes differently than younger brains. Research from Stanford University's Center on Longevity found that older adults show stronger emotional responses and longer recovery times to televised news compared to the same information presented in print format. This is partly because the aging brain processes simultaneous visual and auditory emotional stimuli less efficiently, creating a more overwhelming experience. If you do choose to watch television news, consider recording it rather than watching live. This allows you to fast forward through particularly graphic segments or take breaks when needed, without feeling you might miss important information. Alternatively, reading news from print sources or curated digital platforms gives you more control over the pace of information intake. and allows your brain to process content without the additional sensory stimulation. The timing of news consumption throughout the day creates different neurological impacts. Morning news consumption affects the entire day's anxiety levels because it coincides with your body's natural cortisol awakening response, a period when stress hormone levels naturally surge to help you become alert. Adding potentially threatening information during this biological process can amplify stress hormones beyond helpful levels, creating a neurological environment primed for anxiety that can last for hours. Similarly, evening news consumption is particularly problematic because it occurs when your brain should be transitioning to its rest and repair mode. Studies show that consuming potentially threatening information within 2 hours of bedtime significantly impacts sleep architecture, particularly reducing REM sleep, which is essential for emotional processing. This creates a damaging cycle where poor sleep further reduces your brain's ability to regulate emotional responses the following day, making you more vulnerable to anxiety triggers. The solution isn't necessarily eliminating news, but rather creating strategic buffers around it. Consider implementing a 20-minute positive activity following news consumption, such as calling a friend, working on a hobby, or taking a walk. Research shows this can help your brain process potentially threatening information without remaining in a heightened alert state. The cumulative effect of news exposure is another critical factor. Many older adults don't realize they're consuming significantly more news than previous generations had access to, often through multiple channels throughout the day. A study from Emory University found that older adults who limited news consumption to a single 30-minute session daily reported 60% fewer anxiety symptoms than those who checked news multiple times throughout the day, even when the total time spent was similar. This suggests that giving your brain uninterrupted breaks from potential threat monitoring is crucial for anxiety management. Consider designating specific news-free zones in your home or news-free times in your day. Many of my patients have found that declaring their bedroom a news-free zone, removing televisions and avoiding news apps on bedside devices, significantly improves both sleep quality and morning anxiety levels. The true revelation about news consumption and anxiety in older adults isn't simply that watching too much news can make you anxious. It's understanding the unique neurological mechanisms that make this habit particularly impactful as we age. The aging brain experiences natural changes in how it processes emotional information, including a phenomenon called the positivity effect, a tendency to preferentially process positive over negative information that typically increases with age. This natural protective mechanism is directly countered by the negativity bias inherent in most news coverage, creating neurological conflict that can manifest as anxiety symptoms. Additionally, the aging brain's stress recovery systems work more slowly than in younger adults. While a 30-year-old might process a stressful news story and return to baseline within 20-40 minutes, research shows that adults over 65 can take 2 to 3 times longer to neurologically recover from the same information. This means that what feels like a brief news update can actually create extended periods of neurological stress, particularly when news is consumed multiple times throughout the day, never allowing full recovery between exposures. Perhaps most critically, recent research has identified what scientists call anticipatory anxiety as a key factor in older adults. This involves the brain constantly scanning for potential threats, a process that increases with age as part of evolutionary survival mechanisms. Frequent news consumption, with its emphasis on potential dangers, reinforces and amplifies this threat-scanning tendency, keeping the amygdala in a heightened state of alertness that easily tips into anxiety or panic when additional stressors occur. Understanding these mechanisms explains why many traditional anxiety management approaches don't work as effectively for older adults who maintain certain news consumption habits. It's not simply a matter of learning relaxation techniques or positive thinking. It's addressing a fundamental neurological cycle that's being reinforced daily. The good news is that the aging brain maintains remarkable neuroplasticity, the ability to form new patterns and pathways. By modifying news consumption habits and implementing the buffers we've discussed, you can actually retrain your brain's threat response system over time, creating lasting reductions in anxiety sensitivity. Many of my patients report that these changes don't just reduce their anxiety symptoms, they experience improvements in cognitive function, memory, blood pressure, and overall sense of well-being as their brains spend less energy in threat response mode and more in rest, recovery, and positive engagement. This information isn't meant to demonize staying informed, which is an important part of engaged citizenship at any age. Rather, it's about understanding how to structure this habit in ways that protect your neurological health while still maintaining connection to world events. The complementary information I want to share about anxiety in older adults relates to medication considerations that often go undiscussed. Many seniors don't realize that several common medications can either cause anxiety symptoms directly or interact with news consumption to amplify anxiety responses. Medications containing stimulants, including certain cold and allergy medications, can increase heart rate and trigger physical sensations that mimic anxiety. Some blood pressure medications, particularly beta blockers, can cause mood changes when dosages are adjusted. Even some prescribed sleep aids can create rebound anxiety as they wear off. If you're experiencing increased anxiety symptoms, creating a complete medication list, including over-the-counter supplements and medications, and reviewing it with your healthcare provider or pharmacist, can reveal potential contributors. Timing of medication in relation to news consumption can also be significant. Taking certain medications, particularly those with stimulating effects, shortly before or after consuming potentially stressful news, can create synergistic effects that amplify anxiety responses. For medications that need to be taken at specific times, consider adjusting your news consumption schedule to create maximum separation between these activities. The relationship between physical health conditions and anxiety in older adults is another crucial area to understand. Conditions affecting oxygen levels, including COPD, sleep apnea, and heart conditions, can create physical sensations easily misinterpreted as anxiety. When these conditions are combined with the stress of negative news consumption, the threshold for panic symptoms lowers significantly. Regular monitoring of chronic health conditions is essential for anxiety management, as even small changes in physical health status can impact your neurological resilience to stressors like troubling. Many older adults benefit from keeping a simple symptom journal that tracks both physical health measures and anxiety symptoms, helping identify patterns and potential triggers that might otherwise go unnoticed. Sensory changes that naturally occur with aging can also impact how we process potentially threatening information. Hearing loss, in particular, has been strongly linked to increased anxiety in older adults, partly because straining to hear accurately requires greater cognitive resources, leaving fewer resources available for emotional regulation. This can make consuming news through audio formats particularly taxing on the nervous system. If you're experiencing hearing changes, using closed captioning, reading transcripts rather than listening to news reports, or using properly fitted hearing assistance devices, can significantly reduce the cognitive load and associated anxiety. Visual changes can similarly impact how news information is processed. The aging visual system becomes more sensitive to certain lighting conditions and screen flicker rates common in electronic devices, which can contribute to eye strain, headaches, and increased physical discomfort that amplifies anxiety. Simple adjustments like increasing text size, using blue light filters on devices, ensuring proper lighting, and taking regular vision breaks when consuming digital news can reduce these physical stress triggers that often go unrecognized as anxiety contributors. If you identified with what we talked about today and you're looking for natural ways to calm your mind and live with more peace, our channel is a safe space created especially for you. Each week we share simple and effective techniques that have helped thousands of people recover their peace. We're together on this journey, and every step you take toward wellness matters. Click the subscribe button below and activate notifications to receive our videos as soon as they're published. Remember, you don't need to face anxiety alone, and small changes can make a big difference in your quality of life. Our upcoming videos will explore specific techniques for managing anxiety that are tailored to the unique needs of older adults, including guided practices you can follow along with from the comfort of your home. We'll be discussing how to communicate effectively with healthcare providers about anxiety symptoms, techniques for improving sleep quality when anxiety disrupts your rest, and simple exercises that can help regulate your nervous system when you feel anxiety building. We also have an entire series planned on building resilience against the specific anxiety triggers we've identified today, with practical workshops on creating health-promoting daily routines that protect your neurological well-being. By subscribing, you'll join a community of people who understand what you're going through and are committed to supporting each other through shared experiences and practical wisdom. You'll gain access to resources specifically designed for older adults experiencing anxiety, with emphasis on approaches that respect your life experience and unique needs, rather than one-size-fits-all solutions. I want to thank you for staying with me through this video and for your willingness to explore this important topic. Understanding the connection between daily habits, like news consumption, and anxiety in older adults is a crucial first step toward reclaiming your sense of peace and well-being. The knowledge you've gained today puts you in a position of strength. You now understand some of the key neurological mechanisms behind anxiety symptoms that might have seemed random or inexplicable before. Remember that making changes to deeply ingrained habits takes time and self-compassion. You don't need to transform everything at once. Even small adjustments to when and how you consume news can create significant improvements in your anxiety level. Start with what feels most manageable to you, perhaps shifting your news consumption away from early mornings or evening, or adding a brief calming activity afterward. Pay attention to how these changes affect how you feel, and gradually build on what works for you. If you found this information helpful, please consider sharing this video with others who might benefit. Many older adults suffer from anxiety in silence, believing it's simply an inevitable part of aging or unaware of how specific daily habits might be contributing to their symptoms. Your share could be the first step in someone else's journey toward understanding and relief from chronic anxiety. I sincerely wish you well on your journey toward greater peace and comfort. Remember that anxiety, while challenging, is something that can be understood and managed effectively with the right approaches. Your brain remains capable of creating new patterns and responses at any age. The very fact that you've sought out this information demonstrates your resilience and determination to improve your quality of life. Those qualities will serve you well as you implement what you've learned. In our next video, we'll build on this foundation with specific techniques for creating morning and evening routines that support neurological calm and resilience, particularly for those times when you feel most vulnerable to anxiety. Until then, be gentle with yourself as you begin to make these changes. Every step toward understanding and managing anxiety is a victory worth celebrating. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to continuing this conversation in the comments below and in future videos. May you find moments of peace and comfort in the days ahead, and may the information we've shared today help light the path toward a calmer, more joyful experience of your daily life.